Hey guys, it's Alex here. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a review on this Colourpop by the Rosé eyeshadow palette. I show you guys some swatches of all the shades and talk a little bit in depth about the palette and the pricing, and then I create this look here testing out the palette. So if you want to know how I created this look and what I think about the palette and if it's actually worth spending the money on, just keep watching. So first things first, this is the palette in its unit carton. It just says by the Rosé with these pretty little rose gold bubbles, and then the outside of the palette pretty much looks the same. And then on the back of the palette we have all of the shade names. So this is what the inside of the palette looks like. It is a Colourpop 9 pan and it has no mirror. And here is a close-up of all of the shades. So in this palette you have 4 true shimmer shades, and this colour down here is more of Colourpop's matte shimmer shade that they do, and then the rest are 4 mattes. So you've got a good mixture of shimmers and mattes. This palette is definitely more on the warm pink side as opposed to neutral shades. This product retails for $14 US, which is equivalent to 20 New Zealand dollars. It is a little bit more expensive than other Colourpop 9 pans. I would assume because the pan size is actually bigger compared to their older 9 pans. I'll show you another Colourpop palette that I have for comparison. So I've got By the Rosé, and then this is Blush Crush. The pan size is significantly bigger in By the Rosé, which is why I'm assuming that there is that price bump up. So with this costing $14 US, you're looking about $1.50 US per shade, which isn't too bad. I think that's pretty typical for Colourpop palettes. They are incredibly affordable, but the question is, how does this perform? So I'm going to show you guys some swatches of all the shades, and then I'm going to create a look with this palette to see how it actually performs on the eyes. So from right to left we have the shade Sparkling, Picnic Basket, Over Ice, Sunday Soiree, Cheers Babe, Effervescent, Ripe, Sweetness, and Savor It. So those are the swatches. Obviously, I don't think that arm swatches actually dictate how well a product performs, so the only way to do that is by testing it. So let's create a look with this palette and see how the eyeshadows perform. Okay, I brought you guys in closer just so you can actually see what I'm doing. One thing I forgot to mention is they actually have the names printed on the palette, which is really helpful if you're someone who does content creation, makeup tutorials. It just saves a lot of time not having to flip to the back and then back to the front of the palette just to get the shade name. So I've just quickly prepped my eyes using the P. Louise base in the shade Rumor 2. I use this base across all my eyeshadow looks, so I think to give it the best shot I have to keep things consistent. This base makes eyeshadows a dream, so if it doesn't perform well then I would be a bit concerned as to what it performs like without this base, because this base is amazing. So I'm gonna dip into this shade here called Savor It. Alright, first impressions. They are definitely softly pressed. I'm getting a bit of kickback in the pan, but I don't really care about that. Softly pressed usually means it's a bit more pigmented. It's not going everywhere, you can just see where it has kicked up a little bit, but I don't mind that. If you do, that's something to keep in mind. We'll see if that's the case across all the shades as well, because it might not be. Okay, so I'm gonna start by putting that in my crease. Okay, yeah, it's pigmented. I don't have much on my brush, so I expected that, judging by the kickback. It's good. It's going on the eye really nicely as well. This color is really easy to blend. I don't have to do much work at all to get it to go where I want it to. I'm just gonna create like a little half moon shape. So I've just picked up some more of that product and I'm just going to keep deepening that eyeshadow. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So far the first shade is really nice. I quite like that. Next I'm gonna pick up this shade here called Sunday Soiree. And I'm just using that shade to lightly blend the last shade out. It's performing the same as the other shade, really easy to blend. You really don't have to put a lot of pressure into the brush. These shades just want to blend. I really like them. They're very buttery. So I'm a big fan so far. So I'm just going to repeat that same step on the other side. Next I'm picking up this shade here called Picnic Basket. Alright, this is our lightest shade. But there's a lot more kickback on that one. This one's definitely pressed a bit softer than the other two. But I'm just going to place that. Oh my god, that's really pigmented. Oh wow, for a pastel pink. Okay, I'm just going to use this as my transition shade. I don't mind if it gets a little bit over the other shadows because I will go back in and re-intensify the colours. Definitely the more softly pressed matte out of the others I've tried. but it still blends really well, none the same. Most like white or pale nude eyeshadows that I come across are a little bit softer pressed just so you get a bit more pigment out of them. So that's fine for me, but obviously if you don't like kickback, that is something to be mindful of. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with each of those shades and re-intensify and re-blend the look, just so that we can get the most out of those eyeshadows. Look how intense and deep you can get that shade when you really pack it on. Like, that's really beautiful. I've decided I actually want to pick up some of this shade here called Effervescent. I just want to use it to get a little bit more of a red tone out of this look. So I'm going to pop that in as well. And then we're testing out as many shades in the palette as possible. This one is also pressed similarly to Picnic Basket, that white pastel pink shade. Yeah, that's better. I just want more of that berry tone in there. That's so pretty. Okay, so as you can see, this is why it's important to go over your shadows a couple times. Look how much more intense those colors are, just from me going back and re-intensifying them a little bit more. So it's safe to say that these eyeshadows, the 4 mattes that I have tried, are very pigmented. One thing I do find with these darker berry tones is that you actually can't get them very deep, but this palette, that's not an issue. It's the range of that shade is amazing. You can kind of have it more light like I did at the start, or you can go full impact and get this really bold, deep, grungy look. I think it looks really pretty. Okay, I've decided I actually want to do a halo eye, like proper cut the center of the lid out and do like a really pretty big bold halo eye. So that's what we're going to do today. I feel like it will give us a bit more range with the colors to play with, because I really do want to try use as many colors as possible because this is a review video. So I'm just taking some makeup remover on a Q-tip and I'm just going to remove any eyeshadow that's in the center of the lid. This will just kind of mark out a guide for our halo eye, and it's going to stop any of the eyeshadows going muddy with my concealer product. So I'm just going to go in and slowly start removing any product that is where I'm going to put my halo eye. Okay, so I've got my guidelines set out and now we're actually going to use a product to create the halo eye. I'm going to be taking my P. Louise Acid Rain paint in the shade Blank Canvas to cut the halo eye out today. And of course I'm going to use my tried and true P. Louise 7072 brush. So I've just picked up some of that on the back of my hand and now we're going to create our halo eye. Okay, so now we've got our halo eye. I did just take the darkest eyeshadow color that I was using and put it in my inner and outer corner just to make the blend seamless. You kind of have to do it as the product is setting, just so that it's not choppy or patchy in any areas. Okay, so now let's actually play with some of the shimmer shades in the eyeshadow palette. First I'm going to pick up this shade here called Cheers Babe. And I'm going to pick that shade up on my finger. It looks so pretty and metallic. I love it. And I'm just going to pop that on the outer edge of my halo eye. Oh my god. Wow, okay, that is stunning. The reason I'm actually applying this with my finger is because I feel like most shimmer shades apply better with your finger as opposed to a brush. I'm just gonna messily put that on, and then to get close to the line I will use a brush. So I'm just picking up that same shade on a JH42 and I'm just getting nice and close to where the edge of our halo eye is. So I've just done the same thing to the other eye. I really like that shade. It's really softly pressed, but it's so reflective. So that might be one of my favorites so far. I'm just taking my darkest shade and just gently kind of flicking that color onto where we put that shimmer just to blend it into the matte. I'm going to pick up this shade here called Sparkling. And I'm going to pick that up on my finger again. This shade might even be more blinding than the last. It's just like this icy rose gold color. It's so pretty. Okay, and I'm just going to take that shade down the center of my eye. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. It's the perfect center eyeshadow for this halo eye. Okay, I'm just picking that colour up on the same brush from before and I'm just using that to apply it nice and close to the line at the top. And then I'm just going to take that previous shade we used and just use it to blend the edge, just so that there's no harsh lines between the eyeshadows. Okay, so I do want to add a little bit more extra sparkle to this look. I'm going to take my Urban Decay Heavy Metal Glitter Liner in the shade Midnight Cowboy. And I'm just going to put this underneath that halo eye line we've created. I'm not going to film it just because it's not really necessary to create the look, so I'll be right back once I've done that. Okay, so I have added that glitter liner. It's very sparkly now. So I'm going to do my base makeup before we finish off the eyes, but I just wanted to show you any little bits of fallout that have gone onto my skin. So there's pretty much no fallout on the skin, which is great if you are a person who does not like fallout. Okay, so I'm going to quickly do my base makeup and then I'll be back to finish off the eyes. So I've done my base makeup and I also forgot to hit the record button, but I'll just walk you through the steps that I did. I went in with the shade Savor It and I ran this under my lower lash line. And then I picked up the shade Sunday Soiree and I used the shade to blend that previous one out. So I picked up the shade Sparkling and I used that as a highlight shade in my inner corner and under my brow bone. And then I took this Colourpop cream gel liner in the shade Joyride and I just ran this in my waterline. So yeah, luckily I hadn't done too much, but those are the steps I did. And now I'm going to add some mascara and lashes. I'm just going to do that off camera and then I'll be back to show you the finished look and give you my final thoughts. Alright guys, and here is the finished look. And here is the finished look up close. So I popped some mascara and lashes on. I just added some little gems because I've been really inspired by Euphoria makeup lately, clearly. So now that I have actually tested the palette on my eyes, what do I think? So to recap, this palette retails for $14 US. You get 9 shades, 4 shimmers, 4 mattes, and then 1 shimmery matte. So this palette performs significantly better on the eyes than it did when swatched, but that was expected because swatches definitely do not dictate how well a palette will perform on the eyes, as we can see clearly here. The shades in the palette were really easy to blend, they were pigmented, smooth, and the shimmer shades were really sparkly and pretty on the eyes, so I was really pleased about the formula of these eyeshadows. The eyeshadows did have a little bit of kickback in the pan and barely any fallout on the face, just something to keep in mind if those things bother you, but for me they did not bother me at all. I thought that was quite minimal fallout to some of the other eyeshadow palettes that I use. So it's safe to say I really like this palette. I think it would be perfect for beginners to eyeshadow, or if you're into more of these warm pinky neutral colours. These are everyday colours for me. I would wear these pretty much on the daily, which is exactly what I bought it for. I think it's just a really pretty palette, and I think it is worth the price. So yeah, I think if all of the boxes for you are ticked, you don't quite have a palette like this, I would definitely consider picking it up. I think it's really cheap for what you get. These eyeshadows perform just as well as some of my more expensive eyeshadow palettes, so it's safe to say that it is a good quality palette and it's very reasonably priced. I think it's quite similar to the Blush Crush palette, so it could be a good add-on if you're wanting to add some more like nighttime glam colours to your collection. So yeah, there are some similarities but different shades, and as I mentioned before, the pan sizes are slightly bigger than other Colourpop 9 pans. Alright, so I think that concludes my review. Great palette, to sum it up in a couple words. I really liked it. Also, just wanted to mention too, I got my hands on some of the Colourpop Heart blushes. I missed out last year, so I was determined to get them this year. This is the shade Flirt Alert. It's this pretty mauve colour, and I used that one on my face today. And then I also picked up the shade Let's Dance, which is this like really pretty peachy colour, so I'm very excited to use this one too. Alright guys, well I think that concludes the video for today. If you found this review helpful and you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot by pushing my video out to new potential viewers. And of course, if you're not yet already subscribed and you want to see more content from me, hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so that you never miss a video. If you want to see any behind the scenes and other looks that I don't create here, check out my Instagram at MakeupWithAlix. All my social media links are linked down below. And as always, all products used today will be linked down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!